think the morning session was an excellent one in terms of regulations. The session now is called Technology Innovation in Cyber. We have four excellent panelists, and I can already see that we have some very enthusiastic people here in the room. And I've been telling the panelists during the tea break that there are going to be a lot of questions that are going to come, and they can expect some very complex questions as well. But before we get there, I just thought I'd give you a brief, background and set the context. If you look at security or if you look at technology itself, you can broadly divide it into three areas. Information technology, which is your data, applications, operating system, databases, and so on and so forth. The second one is operational technology, which is what powers your entire processing system. And in the banking and financial services, it could be the switch of the ATM and the software above that, or the payment processing system and the software above that. And the third one is really around consumer technology, which is around smartphones, mobiles, tablets, cloud-enabled services, and so on and so forth. A real digital enterprise is one who has complete convergence across all of these three. Which is IT, OT, as well as CT. So the challenge then for security practitioners and chief information security officer is to look at technology from this context rather than looking at it only from an information technology standpoint, and kind of build controls around this. So I think the first thing which will be very important is to look at what's the kind of architecture that's there for technology security. Do you really think that you can just plug in point solutions and believe that you're completely controlled and secure? Or you need to go back to the drawing board, set out an architecture, understand why you're making those investments, and then go ahead and implement technology. Secondly, I think we spoke about this, Vishal spoke about this in the morning. Mobility plays a huge factor going forward. And coupled with that is also analytics. We'll talk about mobility, in the panel discussion, but just to briefly touch upon analytics, there are a number of devices that are there in the enterprise. There are a number of security products also that are there. All of them are generating events. And someone needs to take these events, create some intelligence out of it, which is actionable in nature, and then provide insights. And that's really one of the trends that is sure in terms of innovation. We're going to have the presentations after this, so I guess Amrish will cover risk analytics and security analytics in his presentation. The third thing that I wanted to kind of briefly touch upon was on identity management. I think fundamentally identity management is seen as something which is very internal to the enterprise, very employee specific. But going forward, and as we speak, I think consumer authentication and identity management is a single story that we have to look at. And that's something that's an innovation that's happening, and my colleague from Uniken will probably talk about how their solution kind of meets this entire objective. So broadly, I think we have today about 4 or 5 things to kind of cover. The first one is really around how is technology innovation impacting cybersecurity readiness. The second one is securing by design. The third one is on cloud, and I think this is where the maximum number of questions are going to come. The fourth is on mobility, and the fifth one is on leveraging data analytics. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the panel, by giving a cue, and then I would look forward to questions coming from you, and we'll take it from there and see how we can cover up all of this. So I'll start. Quickly introduce the panel. We have Agnello, who is the Chief Information Security Officer of Kotak Mahindra Bank. We have Manan, the CISO and VP Information Security of Edelweiss Securities. Architecture. What are some of the design principles that you would like to consider when building out a security architecture?
Sure. So I will start with the fundamentals which are currently missing in a security architecture. For any new technology implementation which is happening today, the basic things which are missing are so there's a flawed security design and architecture which happens to be more susceptible to zero-day attacks. There's one area which is kept open which could not only impact another solution but impact the entire layered security approach that you may have, which is currently not being considered. In many cases, the platform in itself is so much evolving, and with every new patch release, keeping track is becoming more like a challenge. The basic constraints that we have in today's arena are more driven by the fact that we don't really, for any new technology advancement that we have, we're not looking at security the way it should be looked at. It's something we may want to term it as hygiene. While all of us agree here that it is a hygiene, but how many of us actually, so I'm not talking about this group, but I'm talking about industry at large. Nobody is looking at security the way it should be looked at, primarily because we are very much focused on bringing in new things and trying to address the bigger challenges like fear, competition, and business challenges. So we will have to bring in essence more from technology adaptation, but at the same time giving due importance to the security risks. One key thing which to answer to what Sundar just raised to me is we will have to introduce security as a culture wherein each and every element of business. So in the earlier session that we had today, one thing which was brought out was technology is driven by business, whereas it should be the other way around. I would want to counter that by saying that it should be a partnered approach, more importantly, because without technology, business cannot do, and unless business demands for it, technology will not exist. So it has to be partnered, and security must play a vital role in looking at the technology before it gets into action in the organization. The way we practice at Edelweiss is we look at security, right at the stage where the technology which is supposed to be adapted is in the concept stage. So that's where it is evaluated, and we identify risks and look at all the challenges which come into play. And we jointly agree whether we want to look at this further or whether we stop here. Is it hygienic? Is it good for the ecosystem? Or and then we look at progressing from there on. So that's my bit on the security aspect when it comes to new technologies.
Sure, thanks, Manan. I think that was a good start, and we get to endpoints now. Most of us really don't know what is it that we're getting to when we get into complex endpoints, and we have our expert Weber from here, who will talk to us. Weber, really around what are some of the success stories, some of the learnings that we have from global banks that we can incorporate here in India from a consumer device protection standpoint.
Thank you, Sundar. So, well, I wouldn't like to say that I'm a resident expert. I think all of you are living and breathing security a lot every day and I'm seeing the challenges of it. But at least from the perspective of IBM and specifically the cybersecurity piece, which we are seeing, I think a few practices which we are seeing is one, the digital channel is here to stay. I think that's a given. And the security conversation for us is becoming more and more of not just a conversation with the CISO, but a line of business conversation. And as I said earlier, if you're trying to drive your per cost of transaction of a branch is 60 rupees and you want to get it down to 1 rupee or less than that by using the digital channel, you've got to use that channel in ways that it is secure and give the users the comfort they can continue to use that channel. The challenge which usually comes is that too much security kills the adoption of the channel itself. So where do you draw the line between convenience and security? And some of the best practices which we have seen in that are around how do you adopt technology solutions? And there are many of our partner community friends here as well. How do you pick the right technology solution which works for you, which brings convenience and security both together for your customers? From an endpoint perspective, and if I talk especially about mobile, and if I take some examples, what is a bank you want to do if a consumer is coming from unsecure Wi-Fi? Is it a problem or not on the mobile device? What if he's coming from a jail-rooted or broken device, which is a higher security threat level? What if he has got any malware on the device? If he's got a spitmo, which is spy in the mobile, which can steal your SMSs potentially. Do you want to do something differently if you have that intelligence and want to give that user a different user experience? I don't want everyone to put OTPs multiple times or answer 5 questions to make a simple 500 rupee transaction. And I think that's where the payment banks are coming in to, or maybe at least the digital wallets right now which are already existing are coming in and making the transaction very smooth while still trying to figure out how to address the security challenge. And I think some of the best practices we have seen in managing the threats coming from consumer endpoints, which we were talking earlier as well, is by looking at either if you're as part of your mobile app, a solution goes out, rolled out to the customer, that you start to get this visibility. That is one. The second is if you have solutions which tell you what are the advanced financial malwares out there, and if any user is coming from an infected endpoint, does your risk engine has the capability to see that and in real time either step up the challenge or not allow large transactions to go through or a new party to be added in transactions. So this is sort of getting into the brass tacks of how some of the large banks are adopting endpoint related strategies in cybersecurity space, because the threat seems to be increasing a lot as we speak.
Sure, thanks, Weber. Any questions, before I kind of move on? Okay, so let me get to analytics. I think this is a subject which most of us believe we understand as a concept, but I guess none of us have been able to implement it the way it really has to get implemented. Ambrish is already smiling because I have done half of his sales pitch, I guess. So Ambrish, tell us the story behind putting together an effective threat intelligence and analytics program, and what is it that we should really look forward to in terms of an approach to go about doing this?
Yeah, I think security industry is quite new. So first and foremost, in the last 12, 13, 15 years that we have seen this, most of the other industries or even look beyond IT. Like when you have to do a health check of your own individual, right? You go to a doctor once in a year, do a health check just to check that everything is okay with us. If you look at some of the other benchmarks, cricket, for example, right? We just got out of the World Cup, we're just going into the IPL part. Imagine the kind of, look at the kind of analysis that goes in there. How is the bowler bowling? What area he should pitch in? If India, doesn't lose 4 wickets to the 30th over, India wins the match. All kind of analysis goes in every part of our world. Insurance companies are using this. Every industry is using it, but when it comes to security industry, right, one of the biggest challenge that we have is have we really analyzed and have we really started looking at what is the health check of what we are buying, what we are investing, how we are deploying it in our. So I think analytics is going to be a critical thing going forward. In fact, in my presentation later in the day, I'm going to talk about what really now is required to be done. We have bought tons and tons of products on security, right? Maybe firewalls, the AVs, the DLPs, the name it, right? Are they integrating? Are they working in the right manner that they should be working in? And I think analytics is basically just taking the health check of where your current state is to where you want to. And I think that's going to be a critical part when it comes to a security analytics part. Can it help your business? In fact, we came with a concept saying that can security empower the people? Security is always, all of the CISOs here, or security is seen as an ego. And usually the business will not want to go to a CISO and want to tell him that, oh, this is something which you want to do, because they're so scared that the CISO is going to turn down that request. So, with the help of analytics, if the CISO is able to show them that this is why I'm saying no to this, and if you do it this way, you'll be in a much better position. I think that's the value that the security analytics will bring to the industry and to the security products.
So thanks, Amrish. Nello, you've now, I think, have a big challenge on hand on integration. Technology integration is probably fairly simple, but for you, I think it's to look at the risk on both sides and make sure that it's all protected. And obviously, the technology also should integrate. The security technology should also integrate. So when you go about, this journey, what do you think is the most important principle that you need to keep in mind when this integration happens?
I think one of the most important factors is, especially during an integration, merger kind of situation, is where you need to get both the teams together on a common platform. Because the practices may be different at both the places, both the banks. So get them on a common platform, and then basically decide on how you want to go about implementing things. And at Kotak, I think we have a very good support and a very good structure already put in place, which can make this integration, really smooth and which can go through, very well. So what we have been doing is basically for everything that we are doing, every rollout or any integration thing what we are doing is the security teams at both the places are always in touch, and we keep discussing the processes that need to be laid down, that are already in place, and where we can still improve upon that further. So that is on the integration part of it. A couple of other things that we are looking at, and like Amrish pointed out, saying that whether we really know what is happening into our network. There are blind spots. We make a lot of investment in security, but is it really paying off? So those kind of things are something that is really which is there on our agenda, and we are evaluating quite a few solutions over there to see that we really get full value out of the security investments that we are making over there. Secondly, also on the consumer front, because Kotak is in a very big way into digital banking. And the risks also are very huge over there. So a couple of solutions that we are looking at, we have been discussing on the malware front, on the customer devices, and those kind of things. So there are a lot of things which we have already done, and there are a couple of more things that we are looking at to secure the solution for that.
Thanks, Ignelo. Dilip, I think Facebook as a channel is something which most banks are adopting now. Primarily it was being used as a channel where people could come and post their grievances, which is good, which is a brilliant idea. But then there are confidential PII related details also that get posted there. The good part about this is that you're closer to the customer, but at the end of the day, the Chief Information Security Officer has to assume the risk and protect the organization. So in a global bank like yours, how is it that you're adopting this, and what is the kind of approach that you would look at in technology solutions that kind of enable the protection mechanism around this?
Sure. Basically, Sundar, what we do is Facebook banking is something that we've not got into yet. As a policy of the bank, we are not going into Facebook banking specifically. Though Facebook is used for marketing, getting in touch with the customer, understanding the customer's requirements, and so forth. We are getting into other forms of digital banking channels, so that is something that we are reaching the customer on a digital media, yes. But social media is definitely having its own risk, as we all understand. From the customer perspective, when you interact with the customer on social media, as you already mentioned clearly, the risks are high when the customer has to put his grievances out there. If he puts a like post, definitely you will like it, and that helps the bank. But if he puts a bad post out there for you, and he puts some really nasty things about the bank into details of what happened with him, it might be one-off case possibly, and might be very specific to the customer, or a misunderstanding, but that could create a big fire around for the bank. So those reputational risks also have to be considered, because you don't know when a reputational risk will translate into a regulatory risk tomorrow also, because that Facebook post is not only accessed by the customer but also by the regulator when you want to assess it.
Sure. I think Nilo, you want to add something?
Yeah. So like I mentioned earlier, Kotak is in a big way to digital banking, and we are come out with certain innovative products, like JP, KPay, hashtag banking, and those kind of things, to basically target the young generation who are very active on the social media, right? And we have built in certain controls in place, okay, and we keep evaluating those controls, and basically these are small ticket transactions, so there are a lot of checks and balances in place to ensure that we are keeping the transactions safe and secure, and we keep looking at it, and we keep evaluating it over a period of time. And there are a couple of other things that we are looking at, like for example rogue mobile app monitoring and those kind of things, so which we are already doing. So that is what I wanted to just add.
Sure. Thanks. Let's kind of discuss something on mobility. I think 70 to 75% of mobile users in India are on a smartphone, and that's one of the most important digital channels that most banks are kind of adopting now. We've heard about MDM, MAM, and all of these things. So Manan, does all this really work, or is there more to all of this?
Yeah, so I was at the BSE conference yesterday, and there was one interesting fact that I got to know, that India is the second largest mobility user in the world now, followed by China, I believe. And we will soon be overtaking them, maybe by next year, is what its sources are to be believed. So the basic concern that I would like to raise here is, are we mobility ready, really? Again, it goes back to the earlier point that I had highlighted, where how well are we prepared for introducing a new technology in our environment? I might sound a little pessimistic here, but that's the reality. So we've worked extensively on the mobility side, before bringing it into our corporate environment. I'm referring to my own organization. And we had a series of MDM solutions that we evaluated before coming up with one solution. That time the focus really was more around MDM and not MAM. The basic challenge that exists today, in today's arena, is, so there are two different aspects. One is when we are talking about mobility, we are looking at the application development side. The second aspect is your MAM compatibility with your application development platform. So I was referring to one of the research reports the other day, and what I understood was there are close to around 200 mobility platforms that exist today. Okay, and yeah, the number is increasing, like we would always believe. Now, out of that, how many of these platforms are compatible with, rather, how many MAMs are compatible with these mobility application development platforms? Why is it essential for us to know this? Is because your policies, your controls, all of those would completely be dependent on the adaptability of your mobility MAM with your mobility application platforms, development platforms. That's where the challenge is. So now I have been, so in my quest to identify, I've been looking at many solutions over to try and see what is the quickest turnaround. Now, obviously, this brings in a lot of overhead on the application development team as well, because there are two approaches that you can have to introduce an application into your corporate space. The only way that an application finds place in my policy is if at all the application is compatible and it is rolled out via an adequately, reasonably done MAM solution. The challenge that I face today is the compatibility of this with the mobility platform. Like I mentioned, there are two approaches to roll out any application into your MAM. One is using the SDK approach and the other one is using a RAP approach. If you use the RAP approach, the job is done a lot more easier. Sorry if I'm sounding a bit technical here, but it's very essential for us to know that the RAP approach makes life very easy for people to roll out any application. But it brings along its own set of challenges. The first and the foremost challenge is the compatibility itself. So you don't have, many of these MAM solution providers don't have compatibility here. The second approach is your SDK approach, which amounts to a lot of efforts on the application development team side. So that's where the dilemma really lies, and yes, we are moving towards the mobility space very fast. We as an organization, and we are looking at different solutions, how to deal with it. Currently, we are looking at the SDK approach because that's the only way left for us for now. So that's my bit on the mobility space.
Yeah, well.
I think I'll second one of the thoughts you said. I think one, I definitely feel that perhaps the readiness on rolling out a mobile channel is not as strong. I think from a product development, marketing, and reaching out to customers, yes, it's great to be doing this. From a security standpoint, I think there needs to be a little bit more thought to it. And I think I again concur on the SDK approach, especially when you're looking at an MAM kind of thing where you're not looking at only BYOD, only your employees, but you're trying to see the endpoints of your consumers and when they are trying to access your application. The easiest way for you to get visibility is when something goes out with your app inbuilt to whatever platform they're using. That has at least worked very well when we've seen some of the best cases around the world. Thanks working with it.
I would just like to put the icing on the cake here. India is also the second country in the world to be targeted on the mobility space in terms of attacks. So that perhaps makes it even more imperative for us to be well prepared before we roll out. See, we are at that juncture where we are, adapting a technology. This is the right time where we should think about it and be very, very judicious while taking this call, whether we will want this application to go live without an MAM or with a substandard MAM, suboptimal, let me put it in a better word here, suboptimal solution, or perhaps look at a full-fledged solution and wait for that time. So that choice ideally should be ours. Of course, it is always to some extent rolled by the business, so we'll have to handle that before we go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Maran. I'd just like to move on to a very interesting topic.